Have you ever met someone who never raises their voice, never starts a fight, never shows what most people would call anger, and yet deep inside them something is quietly burning that they themselves refuse to acknowledge? That is not peace, and that is not patience. That is hidden anger, and it is one of the most misunderstood psychological states a human being can live in. Today we are talking about the normal, everyday habits that look completely fine on the outside, but are actually silent signs that you are hiding anger you never learned how to express. And before you decide this does not apply to you, I want you to stay with me. Because the people who need this the most are almost always the ones who say, I am not an angry person. The first habit is over apologizing for things that are not your fault. And this goes deeper than just being polite. You bump into a door and you say sorry. Someone is rude to you and somehow you end up apologizing to them, and on the surface it looks like anxiety or politeness, but psychologically what is happening is that you have been conditioned to suppress your reaction entirely. When something happens that should make you feel frustrated, your mind does not let that feeling rise. Instead, it immediately redirects it into self-blame. Because somewhere in your past expressing anger led to something painful, and so your brain learned to turn that anger inward and disguise it as an apology, and it feels so natural to you now that you do not even notice you are doing it. The second habit is laughing when you are actually hurt. And you have definitely done this. Someone says something that cuts right through you, and instead of saying "that hurt me," you laugh it off. You make a joke. You shrug it away. And people around you see someone who is easygoing and unbothered, but what is actually happening underneath that laugh is an emotion that never got permission to exist. Humor becomes armor when anger feels too dangerous to show, and psychologists call this reaction formation, where the mind takes a feeling it cannot accept and converts it into the exact opposite behavior, because at some point in your life being angry felt unsafe and being funny felt like something you could survive. The third habit is being excessively helpful even when you are completely drained. Saying yes when every part of you means no. Showing up for everyone even when nobody has ever shown up for you, and telling yourself that this is simply who you are. But here is what the psychology actually reveals, and that is that many chronically over-helpful people are carrying a deep well of resentment they do not know how to name. They keep giving because somewhere inside them there is a hope that if they are good enough and selfless enough, they will finally be treated the way they deserve. And when that never happens, the anger grows, but it has nowhere to go. So it gets buried underneath another yes and another favor done for someone who will never even notice. The fourth habit is going completely quiet or shutting down during conflict. And when tension rises, you disappear somewhere inside your own mind. You stare blankly. You give one word answers, and people around you might see someone calm or even cold. But this is not emotional regulation. This is emotional shutdown. When the nervous system was never taught a healthy way to process anger, it defaults to freezing. And you just wait for the moment to pass, while the anger that should have been expressed compresses itself even deeper into your subconscious, where you cannot reach it. The fifth habit is being intensely irritated by small things, while remaining completely calm during serious ones. And someone chewing too loudly makes your skin crawl. A slow connection feels unbearable, but when something genuinely significant happens, you are composed and collected. This seems backwards, but it makes complete psychological sense, because when anger is suppressed over a long period of time, it does not disappear. It pressurizes, and then it leaks out through the smallest cracks wherever there is the least social risk, and it escapes through the exits that feel safe while the real source stays locked behind a door you were taught never to open. The sixth habit is lying awake at night because your mind absolutely refuses to stop, replaying conversations and thinking about what you should have said and mentally, rehearsing arguments that will never actually happen. People assume this is anxiety, and sometimes it is, but very often what is keeping someone awake is anger that was never processed, because the mind keeps returning to those moments not to punish you, but because something inside you never got to respond, never got to say that was not okay. And until it does, the mind will keep circling back to that. Seen like it is waiting for you to finally give it permission to feel what it felt. The seventh habit is carrying physical tension in your body without even realizing it. A jaw that is always tight, shoulders that sit up near your ears, a chest that feels permanently heavy, and you blame it on stress. But the body keeps the score, and one of the clearest ways suppressed anger lives inside a person is through chronic muscular tension. When emotions are not expressed, they do not simply vanish. They are stored in the nervous system and the muscles and the tissue. And over enough time, this becomes your normal. And you forget completely what it felt like to exist in a body that was not bracing for something. The eighth habit is feeling guilty the moment any negative emotion surfaces. Because when frustration rises, you immediately feel ashamed of it and push it back down, telling yourself you have no right to feel that way. And this is the deepest layer of hidden anger, because it is not only that you cannot express it, you cannot even allow yourself to fully feel it. This almost always comes from an environment where your emotions were dismissed, or where someone important to you simply could not handle the weight of your feelings. So you internalize the belief that your anger makes you difficult or ungrateful, and now, even alone in your own mind, you shut yourself down before the feeling can fully form. And here is what I want you to carry with you from all of this. Hidden anger is not a character flaw. It is a survival strategy that once kept you safe and that you were simply never given permission to release. The people who suppress their anger most deeply are usually the ones who felt everything most intensely as children, who were told their feelings were too much, who loved someone, who could not hold the weight of their emotions, and so they learned to make themselves smaller to protect that love. You did what you had to do to get through it, but you are not that child anymore. And that anger living inside you is not your enemy. It is information. It is a signal that something mattered to you, and that a line was crossed, and that you deserved more than what you received. And learning to finally hear it is not about becoming an angry person. It is about becoming an honest one.